This is probably the most important piece of the healing path altogether. Like this is like a crux or a fulcrum or a pivot point. And this is the place of the queen taking her throne. And by throne here, what I want to suggest to you is that the queen's throne is the place where she recognizes herself and she empowers herself as a creator of her world and a creator of her experience. Sometimes the queen's choice is to say yes and to move forward and embrace. And sometimes the queen's choice is to say no and to refrain and to set a boundary. Here in the United States, we've had a lot of acceleration and turbulence in the environment having to do with, you know, the virus, having to do with the election, having to do with the environment, all the natural disasters we're seeing. Like things are literally heating up and accelerating. And there's a term that has been floating around in my mind, and this term is curating your vibration. Curating your vibration, taking responsibility, cultivating the ability to respond to your world and to your inner world vis-a-vis what in Buddhist language we call the three gates. And those three gates are body, speech, and mind. And I want to talk a little bit about each of those. So we can look at our world and we can get swept away in the acceleration. And we can go off the emotional deep end in one way or another. And from that place, we can very easily abandon ourselves and neglect ourselves and say that our self-care doesn't matter, or that in a time like this, self-care is indulgent. I want to suggest to you that it is the exact opposite. This is what, the environment around us might want us to believe, right? But really, truly, we have more power to create our experience and to influence what is happening in the collective than we know, or that what the society would have us own and embody. I'm going to bring up a word that some of you really rebel against, or at least you did last year when I mentioned it. And it's the D word, and that word is discipline. Discipline. And last year we were having a conversation about discipline, and um, everybody was ready to shoot me. They were like, "Discipline sounds blah, 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 blah," Okay. I want to suggest to you that you seriously revisit your relationship to the word discipline. If you are not coming from a place of making conscious choices for yourself, if you're not connected to your motivation, to your big why, like what we talked about in September, then yeah, discipline is going to seem like something that is being imposed on you from the outside. Somebody's making you do something that you don't want to do. You're a kid and they're the adult, and you're going to rebel. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. In the traditional Buddhist teachings that I grew up in, that I have grown up in spiritually, discipline is regarded as a perfume. It's regarded as like incense, because discipline, like a perfume or like an incense, it permeates every aspect of your experience. It permeates your body, it permeates your speech, it permeates your mind. And from that point of view, discipline becomes actually delightful. It becomes pleasurable, and it becomes preferable. After you get the hang of it for a while, then it's like, you know what? I really don't want to eat that bag of chips. Like, this green soup actually genuinely nourishes me and it actually makes me feel really good. So I'm going to choose to eat the green soup. And I'm not going to choose the bag of chips. Do you see? Like, when that choice is made from a place of self love and self respect and self empowerment, then discipline is just the natural, it's the natural outpicturing and the natural outflow of that. So let's talk about body to start. So, curating the vibration of the body. We have been entrained in this culture to regard the body, and especially regarding our bodies, as separate from the natural world. Like, nature's out there, and my world is here, and my body is here. I want to suggest to you that it's actually the opposite of that, that our body is an ecosystem unto itself. Our body is a wilderness unto itself. Our body has wisdom, and Mary Sheila can talk about this, 1,000,001 metabolic miracles happening, 1,000,001 physiological processes that are happening right in this very moment. The fact that I can speak my words and you can hear them and you can make meaning out of them. Even as we're being mediated by this technological device, and even as we're on other sides of the planet, there's still something happening here that is really, it's a little bit like electricity. It's like we don't quite know how it works, but we know it does work. So our bodies are miraculous. They're creations of the divine. And so, what how would you curate your vibration if you really knew that in the very marrow of your bones? I want to invite you to just hold that for a moment and just really take that in. My body is a wilderness. My body is an ecosystem. My body is a miracle. My body is something that is really beyond what I understand, just in the way that nature and the universe is something beyond what I understand. So I want to invite you to cultivate that recognition of your body. Look at your body through that lens. So, how do we curate the vibration of the body if we know that our body is a miracle? How do we feed it? What do we feed it? How much do we feed it? How do we ensure that the body is rested? And there's certainly the issue of getting enough sleep. But beyond, we're going to talk about this later on in December. Beyond just simply sleep, there's also the place of rest, of just simply being able to rest and take a reprieve, step outside of the velocity of the world right now. How do we move the body? How do we express our consciousness through our body? So, all of this points to um, making a sovereign self-care plan and recognizing the sovereignty that self-care really needs to have in our lives all the time, but especially right now. Because if we are not coming to our world with a full cup, uh, chances are we're just contributing more chaos. Then we have speech. And speech is absolutely connected to what we say and how we say it. But it's also connected, speech is connected to the emotional body as well. And we can think of our speech as that which joins together the body and the mind. That which brings consciousness and the body together is expressed through speech. And what we say and how we say it is perhaps the most creative power that we have. So if you look at creation myths, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made light. The Word was made flesh. What we say creates. In the Aboriginal tradition of Australia, the ancestor spirits were said to walk the earth and they sang the landforms into being. The word abracadabra, that like most of us in our childhoods, we learned it as like a gibberish word. It's derived from the Aramaic language, the language of Jesus. And abracadabra means I create what I speak. I create what I speak. So I want to invite you to curate the vibration of your speech, especially now, especially now, and to regard your relationship to social media in particular as an extension of your speech. So, what are you putting out there? Are you creating and speaking forth a universe of divisiveness, hatred? Oh, he's such a jerk. Thank God he's gone. Um, the universe says yes to every thought. And when we speak poison, when we are speaking hatred, we become the very hatred that we say we're opposed to. So I really want to jump up and down about it because I feel very, very strongly about it. I want to invite you to really uh, take a disciplined attitude toward what you say, especially now, and how you say it. So what does that mean? Refraining, having the discipline, saying no, closing your heart to any kind of speech that involves any form of character assassination of anybody. So any kind of gossip. Somebody once said gossip is a polite form of murder vis-a-vis character assassination. So no matter how odious somebody appears to you, and I'm talking about public figures in particular, you, we, me, us, we are responsible for our vibration regardless of what is going on out there or what that other person does. So not contributing to hate speech or gossip or slander. Telling the truth. Telling the truth is another form of discipline with speech. Sometimes truth is very messy. Sometimes truth is full of contradictions. Well, this is true, and actually, this is also true. And, these days, a lot of the messaging that we're getting from out there wants us to reduce things down into a kind of a black or white, like, well, it's either this or it's this. Well, sometimes morality by its nature is ambiguous. There are shades of gray in situations. And having the courage to acknowledge the nuances and the complexity. Telling the truth is not an event, it's a process, it's an ongoing path. So, having integrity with your speech, refraining from meaningless speech, just talking to fill up space. So, before you open your mouth, you might consider, is it necessary? Is what I have to say necessary? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Is it relevant? And if it's not, then there's a whole other side of speech that you can practice, which is silence. And for those of us who have been doing a lot of activism work these days, we're told silence is consent. And sometimes it is when we know there's something we need to say and we don't say it. I'm talking about a different kind of silence here. I'm talking about the silence that might just need to pull back and observe. Sometimes we need to express ourselves and open, and sometimes we need to close and just let me just observe what I'm experiencing. Let me observe my inner environment and let me wait until the right words emerge. And then the last piece is curating the vibration of our minds. And if we follow the disciplines of body and speech, mind will usually fall into place. You've probably heard the saying, we can't think our way into right action, but we can act our way into right thinking. So you've probably had the experience, for example, let's just go back to speech for a moment, where you wanted to gossip about somebody. You wanted to say something and you checked yourself and you didn't. You're like, okay, I'm not going to do it. And you can feel, if you've ever done that, you can feel how your mind kind of, there's a moment where your mind will just stand at attention and just say, oh, got it. Okay, I'm not going to say that nasty thing that I was going to say. So mind will often follow. However, even with good conduct of body and speech, there can still be a place, and certainly now, where our minds will fall into apathy. That's been a big one for me lately. Apathy, despair, fear, hopelessness. Um, all these emotions and all these states of mind that want to pull us out of ourselves. So, again, when faced with all of this, something that's been very helpful for me, and I shared this in my newsletter this past weekend, if any of you got it. Something that's been very helpful for me is to take technology fasts. So I've been taking, I call it technology Shabbat, technology Sabbath, where from Friday night to Sunday morning on the weekends that I don't work, my technology goes completely down. Even my Wi-Fi router goes out. So what that does is brings me back to my own knowingness. It brings me back to perceiving the world around me. And for example, here, not too far away from here, there have been wildfires, and already in November, even in November, new grass is coming up. So nature, Mother Nature, the world is always moving toward healing. Always. You cut your finger, you don't have to tell your finger to heal. Your body just gets to, your miraculous body just gets to work, with the white blood cells and all of that. So when we step out of the human constructed world and just go back into the wilderness of the soul or the wilderness of the natural world, those afflicted states of mind will naturally um, realign themselves with possibility, with life, with the momentum of healing that is always taking place, and that we get to choose to actively participate in. But that choice has to be ours. Like, I can't spoon feed you your choice. You have to take that for yourself.